Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in this video I'd like to expand on something I alluded to in an earlier video. In fact, I think the video just before this, that the Conservatives are giving the impression that their current Brexit strategy is to leave the EU without a deal in order to get a deal. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, 2 days ago, Sir Bernard Jenkin, who's a loyal Brexit supporting Conservative MP, was pushing an article in the Sun newspaper that Boris Johnson's plan was to hold out for the supposed Canada-style deal that they're all pretending they want. If that means leaving the transition period without a deal just to show them we're serious, then so be it. So in this video, what I want to do is explain why it is that the government do not want a Canada-style deal, despite what they say, and also why this stated strategy cannot possibly work and can only be the sort of short-term political posturing that has come to represent Boris Johnson's time in office. Because if it's not, if it's a genuine strategy, they really have no idea what they're doing. So, in terms of the Canada-style deal, the first thing to note is that it doesn't actually exist. It's like using the term Australia-style deal, which Cabinet Minister Alex Sharma this week admitted in an interview doesn't actually exist. I'll be following that one up later today as well. It's just a fancy way of saying no deal, because Australia doesn't have a deal with the EU. Do you know what? It wants a deal with the EU. That's why it's negotiating. And similarly, the Canada-style deal is a fancy way of saying unicorn deal. It's one that doesn't exist when you try to write it down. And some people will say, well, but Canada has a deal with it. What they mean is along those lines. No, they don't. There are three main problems with actually negotiating an agreement with the EU along similar lines to the agreement that Canada has with the EU. The first, just to get it out of the way, is that the EU will not allow it. So from the EU's point of view, they will not allow this. Canada does not have anywhere near the level of trade with the EU that the UK currently has. That means there are certain terms that you can agree with Canada, which would not be fine at all for someone right on your doorstep who trades much more with you. But there are reasons why the UK government don't want a Canada-style deal, because that's what I was talking about. I've done videos before on why the EU don't. So from the UK's point of view, Canada does not have completely tariff-free trade with the EU. I do not know how many times I've tried to explain this. If you are going to have an arrangement that does not include completely tariff and quota-free trade, then what you have to do is negotiate every single commodity that either side wishes to trade in. And it makes no difference that most goods, because what they'll say is, well, most of it's tariff-free. Yeah, but you still have to negotiate every individual one. Because for a start, let's say it was to be 98% tariff-free. It's about what it is for Canada, isn't it? Something like that, high 90s. About 98% tariff-free, okay? Which 98% of commodities are going to be tariff-free? You have to talk about them. You have to discuss them. You then have to work out which goods are going to have tariffs on them and which are not. Calculations need to be made by both sides to ensure that the overall balance is satisfactory. After all, what if it turns out that the 98% of goods you decide to not have tariffs on includes all of the major commodities traded by the EU, and the 2% where they're going to be on includes all the major ones that the UK trades in? Well, we've been stuffed. So you have to have these constant calculations going on to make sure that it's all working out okay. That takes years to negotiate. Boris Johnson did not want to spend years negotiating. Therefore, he does not want a Canada-style deal. QED on that point alone. But there's another. The agreement between the EU and Canada doesn't really include much on services. There isn't a huge amount of trade in services between Canada and the EU. But there is between the EU and the UK. You know, not only is the UK economy very, very heavily dependent upon the service sector, we are especially dependent upon our trading services with the EU. Getting an agreement that only covered services to the same extent as Canada would not suit us any more than it would the EU. In fact, it would be utterly devastating to our economy. So the government do not want a Canada-style deal. They only bang on about it because they know that every time they say they do and the EU are asked about it, the EU will just say, no, not at all. That allows them to say that it's the EU being unreasonable. Well, we just want this deal. And from people who don't pay attention's point of view, they think, well, the deal exists because Canada have it. Why won't they just give us the same one as Canada? Aren't we as important as Canada? They don't understand what the Canada deal is. But obviously, all this does is fool people in the UK. It doesn't move us any closer to a deal because it is not the deal that Boris Johnson wants. So then we come to this supposed strategy. Boris isn't bluffing, says Ian Duncan Smith in an article in The Sun. Frankly, with his level of literacy, I think The Sun is the only paper that would actually publish what passes for his thoughts. The EU aren't taking this seriously, seems to be the message. They don't believe we'll actually leave without a deal. Now, on this point, I do agree. I don't agree that if they think we are serious, it would change anything. But I do agree that the EU do not think that Boris Johnson is serious about a no-deal Brexit. For that matter, I don't think he's, serious about a no-deal Brexit either. And the money markets definitely do not think he's serious, as I discussed recently. He also tries to say that the EU once offered a Canada-style deal. No, they did not. At no point has this ever been on the cards. And again, it's one of these where you only have to think about it for a moment to realise the falsehood in this. Because let us say the EU at one point offered the Canada-style deal. And he's also saying that we want the Canada-style deal. So what's the problem? Why hasn't it been signed then? Also, why haven't the details of this been found published anywhere? If it was offered, anything the EU have offered, they've published. Because they have come up with proposals. It's published. You can see it yourself. So where's this then? Where does it exist? No answer to that one, it seems. In the article, Duncan Smith even alludes to the fact that 80% of our economy is dependent upon services. He shows some awareness of this fact. But he fails to make the link with a Canada-style deal not really doing very much for services. So therefore, he's saying the Canada-style deal that we desperately want doesn't do as much as a free trade agreement for the 20% of our trading goods and almost nothing for the other 80%. Why would we want a deal like that? So here's the situation as we are meant to believe it. Boris Johnson wants his Canada-style deal. If the EU won't agree to it, then we'll leave without a deal. Then a few weeks into January, the EU will say, oh, they were serious. And and they'll come back to us with the Canada-style deal that apparently they offered before. The problem with this is the government's own predictions for a no-deal Brexit include the following. No flights between the UK and the EU. Severe shortages of food and medicines. Price increases for food and medicines. Chaos at the customs borders. Now, those are just in terms of the immediately visible consequences. The things where a few days into January, you'll be able to go to the most ardent Brexit supporter and say, well, look at that. And they won't be able to deny it. They might still try and back Brexit or blame the EU as if that's somehow going to change it. But they won't be able to deny these things happening. They will not any longer be able to talk about Project Fear because not only will it be evident it's happening, it will have happened. But this stated strategy would be predicated upon the notion that into January, we're doing fine. Oh, absolutely fine. No problem. We're all set up for it. And the EU would be the one suffering greatly from the ill effects of a no-deal Brexit. Never mind the fact that we have not been preparing for a no-deal Brexit and the EU have for years. Somehow they're going to suffer more from it than we are. To say nothing of the fact that the EU, in the event of a no-deal Brexit, they lose one trading agreement. We lose all of them, bar about 20. So the government don't want a Canada-style deal, and the same government understand that we would be buggered in the event of a no-deal Brexit. Frankly, we're going to struggle badly enough even with a bare-bones deal, because that's all we can get now, a bare-bones free trade agreement, which they'll sell as being marvellous, but, more on that later. So like I say, this is all just silly posturing. Although Ian Duncan Smith may be dumb enough to believe that this is the way forward, he may or may not, he could just be lying. There's no way that Boris Johnson does, surely not. As limited as he may be, he's not as thick as Duncan Smith. Quite what the posturing is for, though, is a matter for speculation. It is possibly to sell whatever bag of crap deal emerges in the next few weeks as a great victory for Johnson. After all, if Brexit supporters, the logic will go like this. Brexit supporters will say, Boris Johnson refused to talk to the EU unless they gave in to his demands. I mean, we know they've carried on talking. Michel Barnier explained yesterday what he and David Foster have been talking about yesterday, for example. But they're going to say, well, he refused to talk to the EU until they gave in to his demands, and now we have a deal. Ergo, they must have given in to our demands. That is the way their logic will go. But then there is another possibility, just finally. A correspondent I noted was saying that someone close to Johnson, a friend, was describing the Prime Minister as being constantly in two minds. The suggestion is that Johnson doesn't actually know what he wants to do, and he can't decide whether a bare bones deal will be better than no deal. Politically, obviously, not in terms of what's best for the country. Now, if that's true, and I do have my doubts, then the line he's taking could just be to buy him a bit more time before he has to flip the coin and decide what he wants to do. Now, the reason I am doubtful of this, it's not because that doesn't fit with the evidence of what we're seeing. It absolutely would. It would be explained by the way he's behaving. The problem with that is, first of all, from my point of view, I'd have to assume that that correspondent was being completely honest. They may be. They may not. I don't know. Even if they were, is this friend of Johnson that's talked to them being honest? Again, if they are they correctly divining Johnson's attitude towards Brexit? What if they're just wrong? You know, what if they're in discussions with their friend Boris Johnson? I don't know how close a friend they are. They're inferring things that aren't actually the case. I also struggle to believe that Boris Johnson is really considering the situation. It's not a man that really thinks about these things. Are we supposed to believe that Dominic Cummings and Michael Gove are not making the decisions here? There's so many ifs. You know, so although it's plausible, for now, I'm going to consider that Johnson does want a deal, but he just wants to make it look like he struck a good bargain. But we may still end up without a deal because he's such an idiot. And of course, we still do not know what the hardline Brexiteers in his party will accept. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.